Welcome back. I'm Camille Pauley with Healing the Culture. I'm your host on Real Presence Live, and I'm glad you're with us. I want to talk a little bit right now about a topic that is so important in our culture, in your family, and even right here in Rapid City, and that's the topic of womanhood and our feminine gifts. I've actually studied quite a bit and even done some writing on the topic of the feminine ethos, what it is to be feminine, the feminine way of being, and how we are different as women, that God has given us special gifts and special talents that are complementary to men, but very, very different, and that women have a special feminine ethos that is part of who we are. Sometimes men will have a dominant feminine ethos in them, but they are still men, and their masculine gifts are still there. And sometimes women will occasionally have a dominant masculine ethos, but they are still women, and their femininity is still part of who they are and the core of who they are. And we are talking with a woman today who runs an organization called the Guiding Star Project, which focuses on our natural feminine abilities to ovulate, gestate, and lactate. And her name is Lisa Canning, and she joins us from Ontario, Canada. Hi, Lisa.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you.
It's wonderful to have you. I am so blessed by your mission, and I loved reading about you and what you do. You're the president of Guiding Star Project. The website, by the way, for our listeners is guidingstarproject.com. And this is an organization that was founded in 2012 for a unique purpose. And when I first learned about you, I thought, a pregnancy resource center, another great pregnancy resource center, great friends of the pro-life movement, the core of the pro-life movement, and the ones who are on the front lives, saving babies' lives. But you told me that's only 1/16 of what you do. Yes. So I'm very curious to learn about the other 84% of what you do. Can you give it a nutshell? What is the mission of the Guiding Star Project?
We have a vision of a future where no woman fears her fertility, pregnancy, birth, or motherhood. And we reduce that fear through our physical health centers across the United States. You know, it's no secret today that the feminine identity has been under attack. Our very unique ability as women to ovulate, to carry a baby, to breastfeed that baby and care for that baby. There's some physical uniqueness there. Yes. in the fact that we are women. And so we desire to protect that. And healthcare is a huge part of protecting that. Because when we can educate a woman as young as age 9, when we can give her body literacy, that it's a natural, incredible consequence. When a man and a woman come together, it can result in a baby, and that's a good thing. Yeah. When we can introduce that very young, and introduce it in the right context with a ton of education, and then offer the healthcare solutions that come along with that, understanding, tracking your cycle, and then providing great prenatal care and birth services. That's our mission at Guiding Star.
Okay, so you do pregnancy clinical work for mothers. Yes. But it sounds like your whole goal is to start very young and work through the birthing or the pregnancy ages, I guess, the pregnancy age of a woman's lifespan, to help her not just not be afraid of her feminine gifts of giving birth and lactating, but to actually help her embrace it and to see it as part of who she is and the gift of who she is and something very special and beautiful, not what our opposition tells us, which is this is a burden and it's something to be, chemically abandoned or surgically removed, but actually that this is part of the essence of who you are as a woman, and it's part of what makes you so beautiful and good, and it's actually going to enhance your life to embrace it and not make your life a burden. Did I get that right?
This was exactly what our founder, Leah A. Jacobson, was after. A cultural change, to be honest, about how femininity is valued in society, how young girls look at themselves, look at their abilities, and that they are good. I think there are a lot of messages today, like we don't really need to debate this. I think, your listeners understand there's a lot of messages around your body and what is good, what is bad. I was a television host for many years in my first career, and I was told not to get pregnant because it was going to impact negatively my ability to thrive in TV. And so these are cultural messages that we want to shift and change, and healthcare has a huge part to do with that. Planned Parenthood has established healthcare as a solution, to culture, like to the culture that they view for women, what they view as good for women.
Yeah, and it's not even health care.
It's not health care.
It's health destruction.
Health care, exactly. Yeah. And so we have to have a response. And that's why I love what we're doing at Guiding Star, in that we're creating this national movement that can, when a woman thinks, whether they're in a crisis pregnancy or not, when they're looking for great health care, they can find a Guiding Star.
I love this. I absolutely love this. I have a lot of practical questions about what you do, but you said something that caught my mind a second ago. You talked about how you were a television host and you were told to not get pregnant because it's going to ruin your career. And that is the biggest lie of the abortion movement, is to convince you, and the contraception movement, which frankly is bigger than the abortion movement is in this country, but it's so sinister and it's seeped into everything that people don't see it and hear it, in the news the way you do about abortion. But it is such a lie that you can't use your gifts and fulfill your deepest, most beautiful desires if you get pregnant. I was pregnant with both of my children, and I was producing television video series at the same time. And there are ways that you can do that are even more beautiful than the run-of-the-mill get to work, the slog of just getting things done the normal business way. There are ways that you can do that actually enhance the workplace, because people see that you're feminine. I'm coming to work and I'm a woman. I have a baby in me, and you can see it, right? And there's a lesson to be learned about that, and a beauty to be given to the workplace. And so often we just want to pretend like we're all these neutered, stick figures walking around getting jobs done and getting work done, instead of seeing that we are human beings that are getting vocational, callings done that God gave us. So I love how you talk about that. You integrate the idea that women can be mothers and that women are life-giving, into everything a woman can do. How do you do that? How practically do you do that at Guiding Star?
This is why community is so important. When I was a young 23-year-old coming up in the television world, I didn't have many examples around me of women who had, let alone one child, but more than one child, who were pursuing their gifts and talents with almost just unabashed, just passionate pursuit. I'm pregnant with baby number 11 here on Earth.
Oh, wow. Wait a minute. You have 10 children on Earth, and you have an 11th on the way. Whoa.
Yes.
Congratulations. Good
Thank
for you.
So much.
Thus disproving the myth that you cannot do anything with your life when you have children.
But it took a lot of community. It took a lot of understanding that there were messages I had in my brain about motherhood. There were messages around doing it all yourself. This is what success looks like. I had a very narrow version of success. And so at Guiding Star, we provide a lot of community, even just the practical, like, do you need to take a nap? All right, we've got a little room here for you. I will hold the baby for a moment. You go and just sit down.
Beautiful.
Those kinds of practical elements. And mothers who are ahead of you on the journey who can say, hey, I think you're being a little hard on yourself. Like, let me show you. Even just in the very practical ways, like, this is how you can hold a baby and, run a mop or vacuum with the other hand. Like, these are practical life skills that perhaps can be very overwhelming when you're a young mom.
Well, because a lot of these young moms don't have moms in their life, either don't have moms at all in their life anymore, or if they do, their moms were under the same myths that they're under, that that you can't do everything, and so they never learned these techniques either to pass on to their children the way we did in the olden days, quote unquote.
And this sort of shift to a very independent, isolated way of living that many modern-day mothers currently live, I think we've lost a lot of value of learning from those ahead of us on the journey. And again, just that observation of like, oh, that's interesting. She did that way. What can I adopt in my own life and in my own home? And so community is so important. And so that's what's unique about Guiding Star Centers as well. You're getting great life-affirming healthcare from a life-affirming provider, but you're also building a community and a network that will support you at every stage of your journey.
You've got care centers all over the place. You've got them in several locations in the United States, but you're in Canada. Do you have centers in Canada as well?
Not yet, but I mean, I've got not so secret desire about that, but we really are looking to shape a culture in America. I think America needs it. The entire world needs it. But we're very excited about what's happening, especially at our birth center. We have just opened our very first corporately owned birth center in Tampa, Florida. So a woman who is choosing life, like think about this for just a moment. We need life-affirming providers. When a woman chooses life, she has to be able to go somewhere where that same philosophy is going to be carried. And it's just so important that we create these places where life-affirming providers are easy to find, are easy to access. And so we're very excited about what's particularly happening in Tampa. And then we have centers in Texas and Iowa and Minnesota,
I see
all
that.
across America.
I love that. I just love what you're doing, and what you're saying is very true. You know, where I live here in the Black Hills area, there are lots of life-affirming providers here. It's not difficult to find one. But where we came from, where I lived for 30 years and lived while I was giving birth to my children, being pregnant and giving birth, was in Seattle, Washington. Very difficult to find life-affirming care there. There are some great pregnancy resource centers, but boy, are they stretched, just really stretched, and we need more of them. We're up against a break in a minute, Lisa. Can you hang on? Because I'd like to learn a lot more about what you do and to get your insight on the culture. Can you hang on through the break?
I'm here.
Wonderful. So this is Camille Pauley with Real Presence Live. I'm interviewing Lisa Canning. And when we return, she's going to tell us more about Guiding Star Project, which you can find out more about on guidingstarproject.com. And we will be right back.
Stay with us. There's more Real Presence Live to come on the Real Presence Radio Network. Did you know you can listen to the RPR Network when you're on the go? Just search for Real Presence Radio in your app store. Listen live to any station across the network at any time, so you can stay connected to your local community from wherever you are. Plus, if you miss a program, the Real Presence Radio app is your one-stop shop for local and national podcasts, including our signature show, Real Presence Live. The Real Presence Radio app, with you every step of your faith journey. Download it today and see what you've been missing.
This is Lavinia Spirito for Catholic Way Bible Study. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says that when we forgive from the heart, we are transformed and we become more like Jesus. It is not in our power not to feel or to forget an offense, but the heart that offers itself to the Holy Spirit turns injury into compassion and purifies the memory in transforming the hurt into intercession. Holding on to unforgiveness, bitterness, and resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Ultimately, we are the ones who suffer the most. We have been forgiven through our baptism and continue to be forgiven through the sacrament of penance. Through conversation with the beloved, the sacraments, and life in the Holy Spirit, may we be given the grace to forgive our transgressors, just as Jesus taught us.
Catholic Way Bible Study. Peace, power, purpose. Find out more at cwbs.org.
Unlock the truth and goodness of Real Presence Radio wherever you go. Did you know you can tune in to our broadcast anytime, anywhere, right from your favorite podcast platform? Just search Real Presence Radio on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and more. Subscribe now to never miss a moment of our captivating shows, and don't forget to leave us a glowing rating so others can discover the joy of our programming too. Your journey with Real Presence Radio starts now.
This is Real Presence Live on the RPR Network, bringing you stories of faith and hope through local hosts and guests from across the upper Midwest. Now, back to the show.
Good morning. This is Camille Pauley on this lovely day, joining you from the Black Hills of South Dakota on Real Presence Live. And I'm so glad you joined us. If you're just here with us, if you just tuned in just now, we have been interviewing Lisa Canning, who is the president of a wonderful ministry called Guiding Star Project. Lisa, we were talking about how you are in Canada, but this ministry is in the United States and spreading all over the U.S. And I just found that so funny. We were talking about how you were here. You're Canadian, right?
That's right.
But you were here in the U.S., and then you got involved, and then you had to go back to Canada. So you are a Canadian running this American ministry. But do you think that you are going to become the 51st state?
I mean, I would be very happy. There are my fellow citizens up here who have differing opinions, but I would be very happy if we did.
Oh, we would embrace you and we would welcome you. But either way, we are glad you're doing what you're doing, whether it's from the United States or from Canada. It's just a blessing. So Guiding Star Project, we were talking about how the ministry of this organization, which was founded back in 2012. So you are, let's see, that would make your organization 13 years old. Is that right?
Yes,
Did I get that right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The mission of your organization is to serve as an educational resource and a service resource to women to embrace their femininity and particularly their life-giving gifts by helping them to embrace their ability to give birth, to lactate, to gestate, and helping them through that process physically, but also educating them and educating the community. And we were talking about something, and you used the phrase during the break, silos, in our movement and I think also in a woman's life. What are silos and how do they affect us?
We just hosted this incredible conference in Orlando, Florida, the Fearless Future Conference, and our founder, Leah Jacobson, went into this extensively, how there are incredible movements in the pro-life movement. But rather than single-lane highways where we're all kind of trying to, self-fund and fundraise and figure things out on our own, we desire an 8-lane highway. We desire a big highway where we are all going in the same direction. And that was how Guiding Star, came to fruition. She had this vision and adoration one day of the services of fertility care practitioners, so people who help you navigate your cycle naturally, the services of PRC, where, the material support, the counseling, the community happen, the services of birth and prenatal care, all could be, and then breastfeeding, all could be under one roof. And I think that's a very important thing to think about here, because again, as I mentioned earlier, a woman in crisis, when she has chosen life, imagine handing her off to a provider that's basically going to say, okay, great, we can sterilize you after this baby.
Yeah.
Rather than give her the education that she might really need about her cycle. It's fascinating how many women do not understand. We were told a story at our conference, a very young woman, I believe she was 16 or 17 at the time, at one of our centers, who got pregnant, and the care provider at Guiding Star asked her, well, do you know when you got pregnant? And she said, no, I'm not sure. And then the provider asked her, well, how many times did you have sex? And she said, one time.
Oh.
And so obviously she got pregnant at that one time, but that just that story goes to show you the lack of education, the lack of body literacy, the lack of awareness around what is happening in your body. Like, do you know that there's times in your cycle where you're not as likely to get pregnant? And then there are times when you are, and there are ways that you can conceive, like plan to conceive or plan to avoid. And all of that can be done naturally.
Isn't that amazing how in a culture where, the abortion, the pro-abortion, the pro-contraception movements, the feminist movements are all about how, we know more than any other culture in the history of the world, and women are liberated because of that, and we can do more and we can know more. This is the very same people who are hiding from women the most important aspect of being a woman, which is your life-giving ability and what you can do with it and the beauty of it and what it means. I mean, I know what you're talking about. These kids we talk to in high schools and often in college, usually in colleges as well, have no idea what their fertility is all about. They've never charted. They've never looked at it. They haven't read anything about it. All they read about is contraception and abortion, and they have no idea the power of their femininity and the power of the knowledge of what their body can do. What do you think is your biggest obstacle in the culture to getting women to see the beauty of their life-giving ability and understand it?
I would say it's education from a very young age. And that just goes back to what we were talking about in terms of what did our mothers learn about their bodies, and what did the generation before them learn about their bodies? And to look at the history, our founder, Leah Jacobson, wrote a book called Holistic Feminism, where she outlines all of the generation that came before us and why we're here in the spot where women can be on an artificial birth control for like 20 years. And, how did we get to the point where that was seen as a viable solution for a very healthy woman? Right?
Yeah, where did we get to the point where we see that chemically castrating myself, poisoning my body to prevent my body to do what it's supposed to do naturally is a good thing for me to do so that I can then be more like a man? Where did that come from, Lisa?
I mean, it came from, you'll have to read her book to really dive into it, but when the feminist movement took over, and it's interesting because it was pamphlets. This is why we care so much about education. When Planned Parenthood began, it was simply pamphlets being handed out door to door.
Yes.
Margaret Sanger just did kind of the grunt work, literally, of I want everybody to know this information. And we're taking the same approach. We want everybody to know that your body is good, that your body is not broken, that your ability to have a baby is not a problem. It is not something like I was told, like this will get in the way of your television career. It is not a problem that you can get pregnant. And so we want to do the exact same thing that Planned Parenthood did many years ago, is educate, get on the ground, lots and lots and lots of boots on the ground, so to speak, and we need the help of the nation to do it.
It's not lost on me that you are in Minnesota, but not in Wisconsin, Wyoming, North Dakota, or South Dakota, which is where our listeners are. So I'm pretty sure all of them are sitting here saying, when are we going to get one? How do we get a Guiding Star project where we live?
We have great expansion plans. We want to be 50 centers across the United States by 2032. But it is going to take truly a groundswell of people linking arms. You know, we sign almost all of our emails are signed linking arms with you. We need to create the public demand for this type of healthcare, and I think that's a really important thing to pause on. The same way, you know how like iPhones become popular, anything becomes popular, but they become popular because there's public demand for it. Yeah. And so, of course, then the stakeholders, the investors can say, okay, great, like we can pour in all this money. We need the same thing. So we need people to raise their hand across the nation and say, this is the kind of health care that I want for myself and for my daughters. And so there's many ways you can get involved. At our website, guidingstarproject.com, we just wrote a white paper that really explains what we stand for and why we think this version of healthcare is so important in America. And so you can learn all about that on our website.
Wonderful. Again, that's guidingstarproject.com. If you want to get involved in trying to bring one of these clinics to your area or just helping Guiding Star Project go where they think the need is the greatest, along their 2032 plan for being all over the country, go to that website, contact them, reach out to them, make a donation, guidingstarproject.com, and maybe reach out to Lisa about other ways you might be able to help. I'm sure there's other ways people can help, and certainly you can pray for this effort. You know, Lisa, I was thinking that you were talking about the silos, and, you know, the pro-life movement really has had this siloed approach that, you know, I do what I do, and you do what you do, and my donors are my donors. And there is a bit of healthy competition in that because we do need to specialize, and different organizations have different specialties, and the pro-life movement is probably one of the most specialized, massive movements ever known to man. But when you think about abortion and abortion services in this country, what do you think of?
What do I think of?
Yeah, when you think of abortion providers and abortion services in this country, who do you think of?
I think of Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood, that's right. Everybody thinks of Planned Parenthood because this is something our opponents have done very well. They have coordinated, organized, gathered, and collaborated. And we have not done as good a job at that as we could. And I see Guiding Star Project as being an organization that can really lead the way. It can really be a guiding star, if you will, on this and in uniting our not just our pregnancy resource centers, but our feminine education projects as well.
We had an incredible panel of our directors at our conference in Orlando, and I asked them, why is it important to you to be part of Guiding Star? Mm-hmm. And that was the message that came out from all of them, that we are a national movement. And when we are a national movement, we can be stronger in numbers. We can create that demand That's exactly what Planned Parenthood did. And so we're essentially trying to be a proactive response. We're trying to catch, we have failed women if they are going to a Planned Parenthood. Like we've failed her. Like we haven't caught her early enough. And so we want to be that proactive upstream approach on a national scale.
Yes. You talked about even educating children, young girls as young as 9 years old about body literacy. Where is there somewhere on your website that even if they don't have one of your centers nearby that our listeners can go to get information on giving some of that education? Do you have that loaded up online somewhere? That
yes. We have
where do we go?
Incredible program called Cycle Show where you can bring an instructor to your community. And they go through body literacy, so teaching you, here's the incredible news of your body.
Wow.
We cannot protect what we do not respect and have knowledge about, right? So we teach that from a very early age.
Do you teach that to, when you bring somebody to the community, is that person teaching parents and teachers and religious educators how to teach it, or are you actually talking to the 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds?
We're talking to the 9-year-olds, and we have a separate info session for the parents as well.
That's fantastic. Well, Lisa, I am so grateful. This is Lisa Canning, the president of GuidingStarProject.com, which is a wonderful resource for you and for women to learn about their body literacy, to receive help in gestation, birthing, and lactation, to respect their bodies and love being a woman. So I encourage you to go to GuidingStarProject.com to learn more, find out how you can bring some of these resources to your community, support Lisa in her work, and also please pray for her. This is hard work, and our beautiful, real feminine ministries are under attack a lot, and they need your prayer. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
God bless you, and we wish you well. And for our listening audience, hang in there. My husband, Michael Pauley, will be joining us next to give you the legislative update here. And it's always a fun conversation to have with him at the closing of the show. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.